Hello, Aubrey. How are you today?
I'm great, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm excited to be over here on the IELTS Energy podcast. Do you have a question to kick off the episode today?
I do. I'm curious, when's the last time you wrote a thesis statement?
Oh my gosh, great question. Honestly, it was probably back in college. No, graduate school. Yeah.
Right, a long time
Yes.
ago, right? I actually had to write one last night with my daughter. She is writing,
Oh,
and I was fascinated. She's writing this paper about explorers.
yes.
And it's interesting. She has all this information about explorers who were like murderers and stole all this wealth. And I'm like, oh, I love that they're giving
Ooh,
you true history. I remember them
right.
being really like glorified as like heroes.
Yes. Yeah,
And that wasn't always
revisionist
the
history,
case.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good. They're learning the truth, right? That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, but I mean, how important is it on IELTS, Aubrey, to write an interesting thesis statement?
Yeah, we got a great question about this from Porn. I'll go ahead and read it. They
Mhm.
just said, how can I write an interesting thesis statement on IELTS essays?
Mhm.
So we're going to dive into that. Do you need a thesis? Yes,
Yes.
right? We're going to share which scores are affected by having a
Mhm.
thesis on your task 2 essay. And definitely stay until the end. You are going to get today a band 9 thesis statement for every task 2 essay you could face on IELTS.
Amazing. That's going to be huge, huge amount of value for our listeners today just by staying on the podcast to the end. But make sure right now, guys, you go ahead and hit that follow button on the IELTS Energy podcast right here so that we drop into your listening queue twice a week. Aubrey,
Yes, you don't want to miss any of these amazing
mhm,
episodes. And
totally.
let's dive into the scores here, Lindsay. We are going to
All
talk
right.
about which scores of writing band descriptors are
Mhm.
affected by your thesis
All right. So,
and
Aubrey,
how are they
yeah.
affected?
So, what would be the first score that is really affected by the quality of your thesis? What do you think?
Yeah, first is task response. So
Okay.
we're not worried about task 1 here. The thesis is only for task 2. So
Okay.
the task response score does matter, and it's because it is necessary in the band descriptors that says necessary for a response to be considered well developed. It must
Mm,
have a thesis. It's like a map outlining what you'll share in the essay, and this is
yes.
part of it being considered well developed.
Yes, 100%. So, task response, I mean, writing is really where a lot of our listeners struggle, right? We know that. This really is.
Absolutely.
But if we take a little bit of time just to understand exactly what the examiner is looking for, we can kind of move over that band 6 into 7, 8, 9. So, task response is number 1, Aubrey. What would be the second place that your score is
Yes, the
affected?
second score is cohesion, coherence. This is all
Mhm.
about how well organized your essay is. So it really makes sense that a thesis could affect this. You
Okay.
must organize information logically in your essay. You cannot just have a bunch of ideas and it's kind of random, or you
Okay.
will get a very low cohesion, coherence score. And
Mm.
yeah, like I said, the thesis is sort of the map, the
Yeah.
direction. It shows the examiner how you will organize your essay. And without that, it's not going to feel very cohesive.
Yeah, I would think that we would want it too. We would want a thesis. We would want a good thesis. I mean, honestly, sometimes when we create new courses, we write a thesis of the course when we're designing the course, even. That's kind of a
Right? It's your
random piece of
goal. It
information.
really helps you
Yeah,
start with the outline.
exactly. Like, what is the theory? What are you trying to convey in this course or in this essay? So the thesis really keeps everything together. So I love that it's under cohesion coherence. That makes total sense.
Exactly, right? So what's interesting here, the student asked, how to make sure the thesis is interesting. For IELTS, it's more important that it is clear and accurate rather
Hmm.
than interesting. Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
see a thesis that'll say something, maybe just, I will develop my opinion, something like that, but it's a
Mm.
problem solution essay. So really you're
Oh,
sharing problems and solutions, and that's not an accurate thesis.
okay.
So it's not great for it to be interesting if it's wrong, if it's inaccurate. So that's
Got it.
more important.
So we want to make sure that our thesis shows the examiner right away. We know what kind of question we're answering, right, in this essay, and that we're going to
Yes,
answer it. And we're not here to entertain the examiner, is what you're saying, Aubrey?
exactly, right? The examiner is looking for you to satisfy the score requirements rather
Okay.
than entertain them. Yes, but if by interesting this listener meant impressive vocabulary, then
Mhm.
yes, your
Mhm.
thesis sentence should have high scoring band 9 vocabulary. And the
Yes.
easiest way to do this is with templates. You can
Mhm.
memorize sentences ahead of time, and then you just adjust them according to the essay. But if you
Mm.
have a thesis sentence for each type of essay and you learn those, then you can save so much time not having to create this thesis sentence on test day.
So smart. Templates are brilliant, don't you think? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
because it allows for maximum flexibility, but also stability and structure. So you know you're going to show the examiner exactly what they want, but then you fill in the details. So good.
Exactly.
Okay, Aubrey. So let's talk about those amazing templates that we promised our listeners here, right? Those thesis
Yes.
statements, yeah, for
So
all these
for
different kinds
each
of
essay,
essays.
yes, all of
Hmm.
there are several different task 2 essays that you could face on test day.
Okay.
And for each of them, your thesis will look a little bit different, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
for example, an opinion essay,
Hmm.
you are just sharing your opinion and a few strong details for your own opinion.
Okay.
So this will look different from, for example, an advantages, disadvantages essay. So what would
Right.
be
Mm.
a band 9 thesis for an opinion essay,
Okay.
Lindsay?
All right. So here's what it could sound like. In the following paragraphs, I will discuss this issue and proffer justification for my opinion. Wow, Aubrey.
Band
Very
9.
impressive.
Right,
Very
exactly.
impressive.
Proffer means the same as provide, but it's
Hmm.
band 9 because it's less common, higher
Oh, so
scoring.
good.
And
So
these
smart.
structures, this linking phrase at the beginning in the following paragraphs, which is less common and higher scoring than just in this essay,
And if you
right?
think about it, this thesis is just as easy to memorize as a average thesis, right? Using average
Absolutely.
band 6 words. So it's brilliant to put in these high level band 9 words. It gets the
Right?
examiner thinking in the direction of 7 or higher, right?
Right. Why memorize a band 5, band 6 thesis? If you're
Yeah.
going to memorize something and how to spell every word, make sure you use it perfectly. Spend the time to memorize this higher scoring vocabulary.
So smart. All right. Now we get into argument essays.
Exactly. So we're taking
Mhm.
this one template. If you just memorized that template for opinion essay,
Mhm.
then you could adjust it depending on the topic, depending on the essay. So we're going to show you how you adjust that sentence depending on what essay you're given. So for an
Okay.
argument essay, you're going to discuss both sides and still share
Mhm.
your own opinion. So how might that thesis look, Lindsay?
Okay. It would sound like this. In the following paragraphs, I will discuss both sides and proffer justification for my opinion. Is that right?
Yeah, very similar. The only
Mhm.
difference, instead of saying, I will discuss this issue, you are being very clear. I will discuss both sides. You're letting
Nice.
that you've got a topic here that is sharing both sides of an issue, and you're making it clear to the examiner that both of those sides will be clearly and fully discussed in your essay.
Yeah, you're making it clear that you know exactly what the examiner wants. So good. So
Yeah, that
good.
you understand the topic and what it's asking for, and you'll have that in your essay.
Then we have problem solution essays. How would the thesis change, Aubrey?
Yeah, so these topics are asking you about a problem and to provide possible solutions.
Okay.
So the thesis might be in the following paragraphs, I will discuss the reasons for this issue and possible solutions. So you
Mhm.
can see how one good thing to note is you don't have to say in the thesis, I will share my opinion. Your opinion has to be in every task 2 essay. But
Mhm.
for these other essays where the focus is more about the problem solution, for example, you can leave that out of the thesis.
All right. I love it. Now, I hope our listeners are writing these down because this is
Definitely.
gold here, just
Yes.
pure gold. We're moving on to advantages and disadvantages, this kind of essay. Are we ready?
Yeah, so this is very clear where the topic is asking you to provide, advantages and disadvantages of an issue. And note the plural. You would have to provide at least 2 of each in your essay. And
Okay.
your thesis could be in the following paragraphs, I will discuss the benefits and drawbacks of this issue. You want to
Hmm.
use synonyms. If you have it's going to say advantages and disadvantages in the topic, so
Hmm.
have synonyms, parallel expressions for that
Yes.
to boost your vocabulary score.
So smart, so smart. Very high level words too. I love it. And then we get into mixed essays, right? So where we talk about disadvantages and solutions.
As one
Um,
example, right? A mixed
mhm.
essay is interesting, and we're seeing more and more of these on the IELTS
Mm,
exams that are being administered,
okay.
where it's a mix of 2 of the different essay types that we have seen traditionally. And
Okay.
there usually will be 2 very separate questions. Might
Hmm.
say like, what are some solutions and discuss the possible disadvantages. So they're sort of pulling in half of a problem solution essay and half of an advantages disadvantages. So
Yeah.
there will be 2 questions. You need to answer each of them in your 2 body paragraphs. And your thesis, what might that look like, Lindsay?
Okay, we could say in the following paragraphs, I will discuss the drawbacks of this issue and possible solutions. Yeah, it's good to know that this mixed essay is becoming more common, Aubrey.
Yes, right. And often you can recognize it because there will be 2 separate questions. Then you know, okay,
Okay.
well, this is just mixed. It's actually easier in a lot of ways because those 2 questions become your body paragraphs. You have to fully answer each of those questions in its own body paragraph.
I love that. So it's all about starting your essay in the right way, right, Aubrey? Because again, the examiner starts to think about you and what score you might get. You start off strong, you organize your thinking in the whole essay. I love this idea.
Yes, this thesis will come at the end of your introduction. You're going to restate the topic, share your opinion, and then your thesis for a very strong introduction.
Awesome. Is there another episode we could check out to supplement what we're learning today?
Yeah, we want to have you guys go back. If you are thinking, what are mixed essays? I don't know much about this. We
Mm-hmm.
did an episode 1233 here on IELTS Energy. It was called Hidden Examiner Rules for IELTS Task 2. And that was all about mixed essays, what they are and how to tackle them.
I love it. Where should we leave our listeners? I mean, again, if you didn't write down what you learned on the podcast today, guys, go back, write it down, take notes, take these into your essay practice, right? The next time you go and practice your next essay. And where else do we want to leave our listeners?
Yeah, it's vital to these scores, task response and coherence, that you include a thesis in all
Mm-hmm.
task 2 essays. So don't leave it off and don't wait until task day to come up with it. You only have 60 minutes. Save
Oh,
yourself time by having these ready ahead of time. Use a template, learn these, adjust them a little bit as necessary according to your essay, but be ready. This is something you can prepare in advance.
amazing. Pure gold. Thank you, Aubrey. This is great. Really good to have, good to carry into the exam. Super important. And remember to hit follow, guys, right here on the IELTS Energy podcast. All
Yes,
right.
awesome. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye. Take care.
Bye.